Welcome back to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
Well, J.D., it's springtime, and for a guy like myself who loves politics, the green shoots of the political season are starting to sprout, and we are starting to see some good stuff here in these midterm races as they continue to heat up. As we've told you here many times, midterm races are heating up around the country. If you live in a TV market that's a contested race, you may have noticed you're already getting bombarded with political campaign commercials as well. Just a little bit less than 7 months to go until the midterm elections, of course, at stake here, and this is pivotal. Control of the United States Senate. Democrats currently hold a 10-seat majority, 55 to 45. Democrats are defending 21 of 36 seats. You see Governor Rick Scott on the screen here. He's running for re-election as a governor. That's another issue. Governor's races are heating up across the country as well. The GOP is defending 22 of 36 seats in those governor races. So which party's messaging will resonate with voters, not just for those national Senate races, but also for governor's mansions around the country?
So it's fair to ask right now, who has the upper hand heading into the midterms, acknowledging the fact that the only polls that count will be those that open the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. Speculation goes on, and it is worth noting a lot of the commercials people are seeing now, John, have to do with the primaries. There's a fair amount of internecine warfare going on. We spoke about it yesterday in your home state of Georgia. Incredibly crowded Republican primary for the U.S. Senate. You have some key Senate veterans being challenged by grassroots conservatives, some would say Tea Party conservatives, in places like the Commonwealth of Kentucky and elsewhere. So really, what may transpire? That's the question we're trying to get down to brass tacks on during the course of this segment.
JD, what is the most fascinating race for you at this juncture?
Well, there are so many from which to choose. I do believe it is interesting to take a look at the plight of Kentucky's senior senator and the Republican leader Mitch McConnell, because not only is he facing a challenge from Matt Bevin, and most of the Washington folks discount this, and political consultants such as Dick Morris saying, look, you have Mitch McConnell with all the funding, but if you take a look at the polling, at least if the general election were held today, his female challenger in the bluegrass state holds a lead. Now, can that change? Certainly. I should know about the vagaries of Senate campaigns. When I challenged John McCain in 2010, and that was brought about by a poll that came out in Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving in 2009, that had me in a statistical dead heat. Now consider the implications of that race. I was getting into a race against the Republican standard bearer just 2 years earlier.
Right.
Now, you get that, and when you're in a virtual tie, you go, well, this is something you have to take a look at. Long story short, a year and $30 million later, I finished a distant second in that race. Obviously, Mitch McConnell in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is going to do all that he can to let the people of Kentucky know that he is a national force, that he is someone who delivers for the bluegrass state. The question becomes, even with his triumph, and you have to give Mitch McConnell credit, because he was elected to the United States Senate in a year where nobody gave him a chance. He beat Democrat Walter D. Huddleston, and the way he defeated D. Huddleston was to have a group of hound dogs out sniffing around on the Huddleston Trail. Apparently D had taken advantage of some travel, and McConnell was able to pull a big upset that year. We'll see what happens in Kentucky. That's just one of the races to talk about, and we do have a debate right now, or at least a lively discussion from representatives of both parties. Republican strategist Philip Stutts on the right, and on the left, pollster Doug Usher. Gentlemen, we thank you for taking time to be with us today to talk about the midterms and what may play out. And let me start with Doug Usher, because you are a guy who takes a look at numbers. And the simple question, Doug, we took your temperature on this and took your evaluations of some polls you had run the other week. Not so much are the Democrats in trouble, how tough are the difficulties for the Democrats with the approaching midterms?
I think if the expectation is whether or not the Democrats will gain seats in the House or the Senate, I think they're in big trouble. I think there are a few folks out there who would argue that right now the Democrats have a chance to gain seats in either house. I think the $1 million, in this case, $1 billion question going into this is, will the Democrats hold on to the Senate? And I think, JD, what you pointed out, which is very important, is that the field looks pretty good for Republicans, but there are a couple places where it shouldn't be competitive and which may determine the fate of the Senate. In Georgia, as you mentioned, I think there is a potential for a self-inflicted wound, much like what lost them the Senate races in Nevada and in Delaware and in Missouri over the last couple of cycles, of putting in a candidate in a state that otherwise should be comfortably Republican. So I do think that Democrats are going to lose ground, but when you ask how much trouble they're in, we're going to have to see how these primaries go over the next couple months to really know the answer to that question.
Philip Stutts, we've been taking a look at the situation, and as Doug mentioned, Georgia and Kentucky, for a variety of reasons, look like they could become bright spots for the Democrats. But I guess the question is, when you look at the Senate, Philip, do you really think it comes down to that, or the fact that the Democrats have to defend so many seats, the Republicans could pick up the majority, even if, ironically, the minority leader of the Senate were to lose his seat there in Kentucky?
Sure. Well, think about this. 6 months ago, the playing field to get the majority was around 6 seats that were in play. The Republicans pretty much had to win them all. Now we're looking at 10 to 15 seats that are in play. And while I don't think that Kentucky or Georgia are out of play for Democrats, think about how much money the Democrats have to now spend in Minnesota and Colorado and Michigan and Oregon that they never thought they were going to have to go into. And does that take away from the Georgias or the Kentuckys? The money is going to be spread around so much that maybe they don't get enough to play where they want to be on offense. And the other thing, the other way of looking at this also, JD, is to say, this is a midterm election, the last 2 years of the presidency. Usually that, bodes well for the minority party, which is the Republicans. And you've got basically a depressed Democrat base. And how does that play nationwide, not only in the Senate races, but in the congressional races?
Well, Doug, I want to go back to something you were talking about with the state of Georgia here, and it seems as if maybe Michelle Nunn's case has been overstated a little bit. Of course, she's trading on the popularity of her father's name, the former popular Senator from Georgia, who was a big defense hawk and also a deficit hawk, because I remember a statement he made back in 1992 when President Clinton was elected. He was being interviewed on local Atlanta television, and he was asked back in 1992, Democratic Senator Sam Nunn, what was his biggest concern about Washington? And he said the deficit. This was back, again, in 1992. Obviously, Clinton had some success on that, but I don't see Michelle Nunn being, a foreign policy hawk or a deficit hawk running as a liberal Democrat in the state of Georgia. Do you really think that she can stand up once the Republican primary settles out? She's really going to have a chance against this popular group, including Jack Kingston, whose name resonates across the state from Savannah all the way to Atlanta.
Look, Republicans have done a really good job of losing very easy Senate races because of their primary efforts in the last 3 cycles. You could have had this same discussion in 2008, in 2010, and in 2012. And every time Republican strategists said it's just lining up and the field's opening up for us to take back the Senate. The problem for Republicans is continuing to be self-inflicted wounds. If there was some discipline, if there was some sense that there's a party elder or party leaders that had strategic thinking put ahead of ideology, they would have taken the Senate in 2010. The fact that Harry Reid was able to win based on the terrible candidates that they put up, the fact that Christine O'Donnell was a candidate for the U.S. Senate, just shows the failures that Republicans continue to embark on.
Well, Doug, there were a few things that happened in terms of polling in and around Las Vegas, and attorney Cleta Mitchell had some things to say about that. It's true, it did not hold up.
So what you're saying is that Harry Reid won. The only reason the Democrats hold the Senate is because what?
Well, I'm telling you that there were disputed vote tabulations there in Nevada, but the fact is he was reelected. Let me allow Philip Stutts to get the last word in on this. Yes, Republicans, even Republicans themselves at times say, you know, we are the stupid party. We do blow sure things. But as the field expands, Philip, and we got about 30 seconds, what do you think will be the most unlikely pickup? Is it Iowa? Is it perhaps Minnesota? Where will the Democrats be surprised come Election Day in the Senate races?
Right. Well, I mean, we can debate the candidates that ran 2 years ago or 4 years ago, but you're right, JD. We're on offense now. There are not any extremist candidates out there. And I frankly see Michigan with Terry Lynn Land running a very strong campaign, raising a lot of money. Americans for Prosperity is in there spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's the race.
Well, we will keep an eye on it. Gentlemen, as always, a spirited discussion, and we look forward to having you back with us again real soon. We'll leave it up to you, the voters, and also folks who join us via social media. We'd love to hear from you to get your input on these races. You see the social media contacts there.